I'm Javi. The show is Qi Talks, where it's all about the energy. I'm with my co-host here, Tony Khalife. Good morning,
Javi.
Morning, sir. How are you feeling this morning, Tony?
It's a beautiful day in Garberville, California.
Someone told me it was supposed to be 100 degrees.
Oh, God bless us all. May we stay safe in this fire season.
Let's take a breath and say a prayer. Keep us all. I've been praying with Nona.
Huh?
Yeah,
Beautiful.
kind of like a little bit more frequent, with a little more frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prayers do work. I do believe in prayers.
I think you're a man of prayer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess music in itself is an incredibly spiritual evolution. So the harmonious aspect of vibration is really what prayers is all about.
Yeah, there's many aspects to the self and many layers, memories, psyches. There's even lineage, culture. There's the DNA, and then there's our conditioning. So today we're going to be talking. Today we're going to be talking about an energy that we call political Qi. So in Qigong, there's a broad and a general definition of Qi, and then there's smaller, more specific definitions of Qi. And the Chinese use the concepts of grand universe and small universe, grand universe, heaven, earth, humanity in the middle. And in the small universe, each individual has a representation of the grand universe in them. The lower, the middle, and the upper energy center, the gut, the heart, and the mind-brain space. And there's 4 schools of Qigong. First started off with medical Qigong, where sticks and stones were used to not break bones, but to heal bones and bodies. And spiritual enlightenment Qigong was cultivated in the monasteries with the monks. Martial arts Qigong was also integrated into the monasteries for self-defense, and then it spread out after temples burnt down, monks dispersed. Martial Qigong spread out into the world. And Scholar Qigong. Scholar Qigong was a school for the cultivation of peace of mind and calm heart. But for me, the scholar kind of has the connotation of script, word, writing, copying Bibles and scripts and books so that they can continue to be passed down. And then the thinking is further cultivated and evolved. And, whichever monk is writing, they sort of add their thing. So they add their concept or their idea. So, for example, like my teacher, he'll take old scripts that can only be read in Mandarin, and he'll try to transcribe them. And the thing about the Mandarin language is it's symbols. So it's kind of like concepts. It's not necessarily words in the way that we use words. So a lot of times he'll say like the monks use a lot of poetry to convey concepts. And so one of the things that he does, he's kind of like a science-minded guy. He has a PhD from Purdue. So he uses like energy concepts he learned in physics and whatnot to communicate the concepts of energy and help those that speak English, and actually other languages, to sort of understand.
I think what the similarity I find between the scholar Qi and the school of yoga, one of the 4 schools of yoga is called Gnana Yoga, which is finding the absolute truth and reality and connection with the divine through the mind. And as well, the Vedic scripture is all written in rhyme and meter. So, poetry is definitely the way sages used to communicate, because of the rhyme and rhythm. it allows and helps the disciple memorize the cadences a lot easier as opposed to the narrative. So song was an incredible way of transmitting knowledge.
Spoken word, written word and that's how culture persists.
Correct.
Through in martial Qigong, they talk about the oral secret, because there's some written knowledge, but then for martial artists who can't read, then there's called the oral secrets, and then direct transmission is like, when a teacher puts hands on you and shows you, what a technique should feel like,
right, without breaking your bones.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that same path is in every traditional way of trying to seek one's own true balance. And India has it, and Native Americans here had it, and China has it, and but it's still the most important aspect of human evolution, because that's the way you get to know yourself. And if you don't know yourself, which is kind of like now.
And we're going to be talking about knowing thyself after we outline the political Qi thesis that I've organized here. Which,
by the way, as I read over it, it is really, in my opinion, it is the most important conversation to have nowadays, because it highlights how we are totally being suckered into a dimension that is taking us so far away from ourselves, and then spinning us into an atmosphere that we don't know how to land, and we're forgetting how to be grounded, how to be more effective in a world that is so continuously changing, and it's kind of like we're kind of losing our purpose in a sense. So I when I read over it, I was just so impressed, and simultaneously I'm like, this is incredibly poignant for the times, and it's been poignant for a long time, and this conversation should be had on a daily basis.
Well, even the Tao Te Ching, my teacher sort of argues that the Tao Te Ching came from Lao Tzu as a thesis on politics and how to rule and govern.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think as humans have always sort of existed on the earth, there's always been power struggles, politics, war, and then our mourning of that, our reflection. And then how can we see a better world and then also improve our own lives and living? So this writing here that I did was a self-awareness exercise for me, and be like, to see myself overcome in political thinking as a result of the information that I was exposed to, and it's just kind of always there. And it seems like no matter what you kind of what I was observing, no matter what you kind of talk about, it's kind of politicized. There's like a left and right component to things. There's a binary framework to things by which you need to choose a side. And for me, when I observe the situation where you're kind of forced to choose a side, I sort of see that as the escalation of conflict, and the escalation and the propagation of warlike tendencies.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it earlier. There was an assault on the monasteries in old days, where they burnt all the monasteries. I mean, we're always going to be faced with an external power. There's the light and the darkness.
Right.
We're always going to be faced with something that wants to overcome the other. And I think in terms of harmony is something you come to after tension. And you come to harmony so that you can feel the resolve of conflict, the resolve of tension. So if we are living in a state where continuously we're creating tension, and no harmony, that's the end game in a sense. And we have to figure out for ourselves, for our own sake, where is that harmonical point that brings us to a place of total surrender and centeredness, so that we can maintain a healthy vibration within our own selves.
Yeah, that goes back to like that self-knowledge, self-knowing, and understanding how you bring yourself to a sense of coherence, integration, and peace in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, and the stuff that you aligned in this thesis just really just puts everything in total perspective. And
yeah, thanks. I think I'll go ahead and start reading this. I think that's a good sort of introduction for it. I should also mention that I haven't done more research on this concept, and I would be curious to know like how. I need to do more research and ask my teacher and see how it's called in the Mandarin language in terms of political qi. So, for example, we were talking about this a second ago. Earth qi is called Di qi. What else? Auric qi, like one's aura, is referred to as Wei Qi, outside. And there's an internal Nei qi. There's Nei Gong. What else? There's, and there's so many in terms of like everything sort of has an energy to it. So whatever you look at, you can say there's a quality of qi to it. So the animals that are walking around, the trees, the leaves, and it's sort of goes back to the Tao, the 10,000 myriad of things, but where everything also has a source in Wu Ji, and in that way, it's all connected. So in this case, we're talking about this concept of what I outline as political qi, and maybe in terms of like the Western vernacular, I would think that it's kind of like the vibe. It's kind of, in a way, it's also like in terms of interpretation and thinking in the mindscape, it's the lens. Like the political lens is kind of like always propped up to us and in our faces, and everything when you look around, rather than like looking at the world as sacred, it's easy to look around at the world in terms of like labels, and the political lens can give you that label. Mm-hmm. And that starts to, create the conditions, which it says here, of division. So let me just go ahead and start here. I don't know if I'll be able to get through it all. It's 9:15, and you're listening to Community Radio. This is Qi Talks with Javi and Tony. And this is Political Qi and Illness today. The psychospiritual and societal cost of over-identifying through the political lens. I think that's one of the keys, is over-identifying, because it connotes a lack of balance. In the framework of classical Yin-Yang theory, the health of any system, be it individual, relational, or societal, depends upon a dynamic balance between opposing yet interdependent forces, and you can sort of envision the Yin-Yang symbol. Qi, the vital life force that animates all things, is meant to flow freely, adapting to context and circumstance. However, in modern life, a subtle and pervasive distortion has emerged, the overactivation of political qi, which Tony alluded to, a term coined to describe the excess mental, emotional, and energetic investment in politics as the primary means of interpreting reality, identity, and interpersonal dynamics. This phenomenon mirrors a condition of excess yang, a state characterized by reactivity, judgment, inflammation, and overstimulation, which results in the erosion of yin qualities such as receptivity, nuance, stillness, and reflection. And those yin and yang concepts, they're always still sort of present in there. It's just how we decide to be aware and give our energy to those yang or those yin properties. When political qi dominates, it displaces other essential domains of human experience: the spiritual component, the emotional development, artistic expression, and somatic awareness. I think this is really interesting because it's the body's journey. This creates a form of political illness where individuals and communities become energetically unbalanced, mentally rigid, and emotionally dysregulated. Political identity, rather than serving as one thread in the tapestry of the self, becomes the entire fabric, often resulting in polarization, chronic outrage, and moral exhaustion. Can you imagine like thinking about all the things that you sort of deem to be right and what the other side deems to be wrong, and that moral fatigue just keeps kind of draining and sucking your vitality.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the mindscape. Using the principles of balance and harmony drawn from Eastern philosophy, this thesis explores how the overutilization of politics as a personal and societal lens depletes the yin reservoirs of the psyche and the culture. When this imbalance persists, it leads not only to mental consequences such as anxiety, paranoia, identity confusion, and emotional burnout, but also the societal health consequences such as tribalism, breakdown of civil discourse, and the inability to cooperate across differences. You see that in the political figures. To restore balance, we must apply the wisdom of the Yin-Yang theory to our inner lives and collective structures, cultivating practices that temper Yang's fire with Yin's coolness, with empathy, contemplation, embodied presence, and spiritual humility. Ultimately, this work calls for a recalibration to recognize the importance of political awareness without mistaking it for a totalizing worldview. Only by rediscovering the internal harmony, we can begin to contribute meaningfully to the external organization, the external manifestation, as we would like to see it. So that's the intro.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the points that you've made in this thesis, they're incredibly valid. I mean, we have definitely found ourselves in a place where politics is becoming the fabric of our internal being, and then we are being swayed right and left by every point that is being made around politics. And I think there's a sense of extortion in that. You know, there's a sense of we have outsourced our own inner self to something that is much, much bigger than us and is played on a stage that is incredibly different than the stage that we are playing on. And I think definitely we need to be proactive in understanding how politics are shaping our world. Yet simultaneously, we want to be also proactive in trying to dissuade ourselves from being drafted by that current continuously, because it's an alternate current. It's not just a current that's going one way. And so what is the returning current for us? You know, as in Bhagavad, we do the circle clockwise, and then we do the circle counterclockwise. And as you do the same, as you put the same effort exactly in a counterclockwise, then you balance everything that has not been balanced in the clockwise section. So, and then there's a level of reversing your steps. There's a level of reversing your action and reversing your intention, so that you can come to a balancing period. Because if you go in just one current, that's bound to collapse somewhere. And to as we move through the Dantian, it's because we are still in Qi talk here, as we move through the Dantian, and that the mind of the body, the part of the body that never ever gets tired and that's always alert, that's always present, that should have a way of being moving without the fear, moving without the feeling of burden, moving without the feeling of the loss of Qi. But the moment we surrender that aspect of ourselves is the moment we lose our Qi. And as you're saying here, the draft has just sucked us all into a unified idea that we're all mostly kind of now, it's become the thing that we're mostly talking about, which is politics, which is, I think, that's why I feel it's so important to have this conversation about Qi and how politics is affecting the way we live in our life. When I was in France a month ago, I was so surprised that for one night, I was at a hotel room and there was a TV, so I flipped through the channels. I was incredibly just unimpressed with how much of American politics has invaded the European system, and everywhere I turned, every channel I turned had American politics on it. And I'm like, this is interesting. So we do really, truly have permeated every possible channel with politics. I mean, if France is talking about American politics, Jesus, you know. So I think the alternate current to this is politics or politics, no matter how you spin it. And there's going to be a good guy and a bad guy, and that's going to reverse. There's going to be a bad guy and so forth. So it's never going to be a balanced approach, because everybody that comes into power is bringing into power that thing that they are focused on the most, and that's going to leave some people really happy and some people really unhappy. Now, the being able to bring back that energy to oneself, so that you can be in your own self, so that you can attune yourself to the things that are most important about yourself. That's our job. That's every person's job. That's our responsibility. And the moment we give that up and outsource that to somebody else or a system, the moment we begin to feel that we are not present. And when you're not present on this planet, that's when Qi is not available for you.
Very interesting. So let's break this down into a few points where we can see the downstream effects. And I could hear someone at home just kind of saying, well, politics does govern our lives. People out there are making decisions on behalf of the larger population. And that's also true too. And at the same time, as you said, the conversation can be turned inward. And I think there's a good many people who want to have that conversation of, how do I stay in my power, rise in my power, resist something that maybe need to be resisted, but how to go about resisting in a way that there can be harmony. Some people don't think that there can be.
And it goes both ways. It goes for the pro and for the anti, because it's energy out. Those who are cheering are putting energy out, they're out of themselves. Those who are opposing, they're putting energy out, they're out of themselves. So the balance is beyond the concepts. The balance is a total inner responsibility. And in order for us to make really sane decisions, we have to be balanced within ourselves first.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things about the Tao Te Ching that my teacher sort of outlines when he talks about the principles of governing as laid out by Lao Tzu. My teacher, he'll then bring those concepts into the ability to govern one's body and oneself and one's mind, one's breathing, and one's blood. As they say that the body is a battlefield, your mind is the general, which distributes the blood, which the blood is the soldiers, and the spirit is the morale of the army. So, like, interestingly, when you're sick, your morale and your spirit is quite low, but in a way you kind of need to raise your spirit so that the body can activate its healing capabilities.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, so there's 6 points here. This is Qi Talks with Javi and Tony, and we're talking about political Qi. And what would be the downstream consequences of excess Yang in this situation and in this environment? The loss of internal diversity, emotional polarization and reactivity, connective rigidity and echo chambers, breakdown in relationships and community, and spiritual and somatic discussion, and collective burnout and societal illness. I think, like, pre-pandemic, with the rise of like anxiety and depression, pandemic really just kind of spun that into a whole other level. And then we're still having, I think, some downstream consequences as we're starting to see what the new world is and how we reopen. But one of the things that I observed was the breakdown in relationships and community when things got very polarized. And then, there was a large, dark political, cloud that influenced the conversations in a way where, like this says, you can't come with your internal diversity, or you end up being emotionally polarized and reactive, and then cognitively you end up getting pigeonholed into a rigid perspective,
and then canceled.
Right. That too, canceled or censored. Yeah. And that's always there when there's a war too. Yeah.
There was really a great moment when I went to Lebanon about 15 years ago. Lebanon has always struggled with politics and war, so it's a warring culture, so it's ingrained in the mentality. But when I arrived, and I took a taxi from the airport to my house. Well, I guess it's my family's house. Mm-hmm. And but when I got into the cab, and I've noticed there was something absolutely peaceful about being in that cab, and the roads were incredibly peaceful. I have never experienced that in Lebanon in my entire life. I don't recall Lebanon ever being peaceful. Mm. And I mentioned to the cab driver, it's like, what's about today? It feels like everything is settled. He goes, oh yeah, because all the politicians have gone to Dubai to have a summit. Mm. So there was absolutely no politician in the country, and everybody was so much more relaxed. Mm. I'm like, oh wow. So it is definitely, there are string pushers, and pullers, and there are people who definitely have their finger on the pulse and can affect the way that you function and you manifest in the world. And that can be incredibly harmful if you buy into it without having your own personal view about how you see the world and how you manifest through it. Mm-hmm. So, and I think all of these 6 points that you made in this thesis are just incredibly poignant, because that's exactly what's going on. We're trying to figure out how to navigate through a world that's just so overwhelmed by politics.
Yeah, and it's funny, I'm just reminded of another sort of thesis I put together. The five components of the Western breakdown of Western civilization, and I sort of theorize that politics is one of those, with sex, money, power. Let's see, I can't remember. There was 5: politics, money, power, sex, and spirituality. So my observation is that within these 5 domains, for some reason, the education is, lack of a better word, manipulated and propagandized. The conversation is stifled because, for example, politics, you don't talk about, it's impolite to ask someone about their politics. So conversation gets stifled because of that sort of rigid, I see that as like a rigid social dogma or doctrine. Mm-hmm. And I think it needs to be challenged. And then with sex, that's a controversial, I think sex and spirituality are very interestingly, when we look to the ancient knowledge, those are connected. And then so the further manipulation of those and all of these 5 concepts, in addition to the way that we speak to about one another, they're all just conditions to contribute to the breakdown. And I think that's a lot of what we're seeing. Just the breakdown. A lot of it is how we communicate with our inner selves, and then we find. I envision that when we do that, we would then see that inner self that we see, right, in everyone else and in all things. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think we are really at the crossroads of a new world, and we're the lights are not working. So it's just like it's green and red simultaneously, and there's a lot of crashing, these ideas that we are playing with right now, they've been around for centuries, thousands of years, and definitely humanity at every crossroad have faced the same dilemmas and have been in the eye of the storm many, many times. And we're not in the clear yet. We'll never ever be in the clear, because, as you said earlier, the body and the mind there's a battle there, and there's an army within the energetic field of the human being that's continuously moving in and moving on, and trying to move towards a greater self. Is always we're going to battle the lower self and what's going on. So in this thesis, I think the highlight, and I would take this thesis to heart in every word, because it does really it identifies the ideas that are making us leak our chi and then losing our focus and our energetic effort to move to a greater place within ourselves. And also, which is the second part of this, which you haven't addressed yet, talks about how to regain that, how to inhale back our chi so that we can stand firm in our stance.
Thanks. Yeah. In the second half of the show, we're definitely going to outline those. It's 6:34. This is Chi Talks with Javi and Nona. You got it tuned to Redwood Community Radio.
You mean 9:34?
What did I say? 10:30?
6.
I said 6.
Yeah.
I woke up at 6 this morning. Yeah. Let's see. We have a caller, so I'm going to bring this caller in.
Hi, Tony and Javier. Yes, it's Maureen, and there's so many things running through my head, but I was studying Pema Chodron for a while, the Buddhist nun, and something she said had such great impact. And like, if you think about the word ignorance, at the root of the word is ignore.
Right.
And I think as a species, that's what we've been doing for a long time, because as a species, we don't know what's natural anymore. You're not taught that in school.
Yeah.
No, you're taught what is unnatural. I left school at an early age, 13, because I hated it. It was prison to me. And so I feel like I'm not so programmed. I feel like we already know what's true. That's probably about all I have to say.
Thanks.
Oh, one more thing. Before language, we used to communicate telepathically, and we still have vestiges of that. And so whoever told the first lie, well, I know what it was. It was like the lie of separation. It made all other lies possible, and we're still recovering from that. But I absolutely believe we are recovering from that, my darlings. I do. Thank you for being there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen.
Yeah, she calls in quite often when we do our shows. Thanks, Maureen. So, we're talking about the political chi, just kind of like when you look at the condition of chi, you want to have smooth circulation. You don't want to have blockage. What else? You want to have it balanced in terms of its yin and yang qualities. So yeah, as this sort of outlined, there's an expression, and there's a thinking, and there's a communication, and then there's a receptivity, and then there's your own internal thought processes and lenses. And in terms of political chi, rather than sort of, I like so the way that I had been able to kind of derive at this idea was, how do I want to look at the world? I want to look at the world in a sacred way, not in this way that's being perpetrated to me, where I have to think as think of someone or something with a really narrow political lens, but rather, no, what's the sacred lens as me also from my sacred self as well. And so I want to sort of maintain that. And one of the things that came to me was the Qi of service. How can I sustain the conditions to continue to provide service in the world rather than make decisions in a way where I have to think of something as right or wrong, or it's the best, or course, or someone has won over my thinking by providing the best data or facts or something like that. So my processing was to try to find and maintain that place of reverence and service in the world. So, this is interesting. To truly know oneself is to continually ask, not what side am I on, but who am I beneath all of the conditioning? Mm-hmm. I love that question. It's the practice of peeling back layers of inherited belief, societal pressure, trauma, and identity masks. In this process, we move from turbulent surface of yang-fueled opinion into the deeper waters of yin wisdom, where intuition, presence, and truth emerge, not something shouted, but something felt. Mm-hmm. And we've got 6 key principles here: that the self is not a role, silence as medicine, contemplation over consumption, embodiment grounds the self, discernment over ideology, and spiritual center as anchor in storm. Mm-hmm. I'm going to read this: discernment over ideology. Building an inner center means learning to discern what resonates with our truth rather than what aligns with a party line or social narrative. This inner compass is strengthened not through agreement with others, but through consistent self-honesty. Mm-hmm. So if we look at the self as not a role, identity is not a fixed costume we wear, but a living process. When we cling to political or cultural roles for meaning, we freeze the river of self. True self-knowledge honors the mystery, contradiction, and change inherent in being. Mm. And with this silence as medicine concept, you see the function, or you see the way as to find that inherent being as and silence as a function of finding that way. So in a world saturated with noise and reaction, silence becomes revolutionary. Mm. Silence allows us to hear the subtle voice of our inner being, what Taoism refers to as the Tao within the heart. This is yin at its highest, deep receptivity to one's inner truth.
Yeah.
So I guess the question would be, what happens when one's inner truth is it in conflict with another person's inner truth? I think if it's the most high inner truth, how can they be in conflict? But rather there becomes a bridge, no?
Well, I think, as Maureen shared with us earlier, that the first law that was enacted was the law of separation. Like I'm thinking...
the lie, she said, yeah.
The lie of separation. Mm-hmm. But also... thank you.
Yeah.
Also, how can we use separation to our advantage as well? Not as a way of isolating ourselves, but coming to a place for which, if we separate ourselves from the ideas, that could be like a total plus for us, right? And how do you separate yourself from the other when you need to separate yourself because there is no harmonical exchange, then there's an opposition. So the separation is going to be incredibly helpful and healthy, because then you withdraw yourself from that antagonistic reality, and then you begin to kind of harmonize your own self. And what would be the best way, and how would it manifest? And I think the best way would be is to just put a time on it. Put a time on how much you engage your mind in the idea of buying into something or not buying into it. So how do you isolate yourself and separate yourself from that reality so that you can actually still grow your own self? And putting the time on it, I think, is
meditation comes to mind.
Yeah,
because meditation can be many things to many people. I think it's been mostly purported to calm the mind, reduce stress, and relax the body and the mind. And maybe meditation is also a way to find what side you're on, for lack of a better term, but through who you are and how you really feel, but then also what is resonating with you when you're in calm, coherent, still silence.
Mm-hmm. Are you coming back to your own inner selves to know what's really absolutely mandatory for your own personal growth and health and healing? And it's hard to do that if you're not meditating on your inner self. If you're continuously being drafted and magnetized towards the other elements outside of yourself, you're going to find yourself at the perimeter of who you are, not in the inner sanctuary of who you are.
Yeah, so maybe in terms of a course of action, meditation can be a function of, I'm thinking of like escapism from the world, but I don't really like the connotation of escapism, but it's a return. Let's say it's a return from the external world, but back to home. You're going back to home, which satisfies that property of the yin component, that receptivity or the return. There's a neuroscientist that I listen to. His name's Dan Siegel, and he talks about the property of recursivity. Yes, there is outgrowth and there is movement and there's that yang quality, but there's also, especially in nature, the spiral. With the spiral, there's a recursive nature, and in Chinese martial arts, we see this too with circles and spirals. In terms of balanced movement. The energy of reflection is part of that recursive movement, and sitting in stillness with meditation, or even moving meditation, if that's what calls somebody, is a function of returning to, well, what am I really? Who am I? Where do I come from? Where am I going? And how do I want to live and be in the world?
Yeah. And I think to the degree of how much of your mind has been taken hostage is the equal remedy to that, to sit in meditation towards yourself. And also let us not forget that we are in the most magical part of California or the world. We live in the most beautiful woods here. And then earth and nature is continuously acting on behalf of trying to heal us and give us all the messages that we need in order to grow ourselves. And going out there, working, tending the garden, taking a walk in the woods.
Yes.
There's no equal to that. That's the walk in meditation that is filled with inspiration and balancing attributes.
Well, one of the things that I noticed, right, you're talking about the natural beauty and environment here, and the choice to live here. We talked about, you weren't there, but and in Soham Smoke Signal, we talked about your wild nature and finding your wild nature by living in the wild, but also seeing how the wild nature can sort of infringe upon you. So there's that aspect too. And in terms of seeking comfort and safety, protecting yourself to the point where you're in these really, urban and enclosed, contracted areas without nature. And that's one thing that Maureen was saying, that we are so separated from nature. But part of Qigong is the conditions of one's environment. And interestingly, the political lens and the political narrative would say that a lot of people fled California because of far left policies, and People went to Texas and Florida, or people left the East or the West Coast and they went inland. And that's interesting, I think, because, it's offering sort of a political perspective, but wait, hold on. It's not the whole thing. People make their decisions for their own reasons. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to invite callers in. What do you think? Let's see. Here's the number: 707-923-3911. 707-923-3911. This is Qi Talks with Javi and Tona. We're talking about political Qi, the political lens, in contrast to the natural lens or the Qigong lens. Sometimes even like the Tai Chi lens. And what are the downstream effects of excess yang, where there's too much yang, or not, and not enough yin? And then I think where we should steer the conversation is how do we bring more of that yin into it? I think, when you're listening to, the news, or you're listening to what have you, there is a yin aspect to that, because you're receiving, taking in and receiving. But then within the yin, there's also balance. Yin needs to have a yin and yang balance to it.
Yeah, that's where you kind of, in a sense, you have to walk back your circle, go counterclockwise. So you sit there, you receive things that are coming into your consciousness, and if you don't walk them back, then in a way you're not sifting through the information, and which is pertinent to you and your own personal truth.
Yeah. What comes to mind again is like the meditation, where you're searching for the real message.
Yeah.
Right.
How is that affecting you in the global way and in the personal way? And where you meet yourself during that aspect of you receiving that information, and how you receive it also determines how much you're willing to give up parts of yourself for the whole and not.
So for me, this kind of comes down to the connection of all spiritual religions in terms of like, well, what's the real message? And it comes down to love, unity, consciousness, harmony, coherence, balance.
Yeah, I think there's always been a little bit of a conundrum there, because when you're so much in your heart, you wish the best for everybody, and then meanwhile, those who are not in their heart, they're really busy trying to destroy your world. So there is, in my own personal opinion, I think one should be really political. One should be really present in understanding how politics are affecting the world, but also one should be equally present in how they can maintain a sense of inner balance and figure out that which is most appropriate for their own personal growth and personal truth, and not miss that, because that is equally important. That's how you balance the scale. And the scale is definitely part of what we are trying to continuously pay attention to. It's tilting right and left continuously.
I think we got Ranjit on the line.
Oh, Ranjit, brother.
Hey, welcome back to the Humboldt Nation.
Yay! Nice to hear your voice on the air.
Well, I've heard a lot of talk about mind and body, and heart seems to be missing from the conversation. And, we have our Western world Weltanschauung, or worldview, is very intellectualized and backed up with facts. And sometimes those facts may get in our way of embodying our experience.
Oh.
Yeah, fair point. Bringing it back to the heart. So this, for me, kind of comes back to the internal universe and external universe, where in the internal universe, the three energy centers the heart is the mediator of the gut and the brain and mind scape. And I think what I found interesting is the hands and the arms come from the closest energy center where the heart is.
Oh.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ranjit?
Well, I think that, again, another thing I was really touched by was your comment about the seva end of it. And that's where we connect with our hearts.
Seva?
We might attend to the details of a meal or a physical need or whatever.
Right.
But our true connection is that we're not separated.
That's right.
And that's the centering. And then we reach out into our mind to, work the tools to stay alive physically and whatnot. But there's a deeper reality that we're dodging or whatever.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
I'm on the radio right now. Come on in. Yeah. All right. Just had a neighbor pop in.
Oh, okay.
But no, I want to carry on here. So.
Well, you've always, I know you personally, and I know how big your heart is, Ranjit. Your heart can embrace so much of the world and give back the best that the heart has to offer. And I think if we can have more of that heart present in who we are and what we are, I think we will be totally in the right direction, and then we can truly feel the lack of separation and feel how every breath we take, we are taking it all together at the same time. And now,
yes, that's another key factor is the breath, and the fact that when we chant, when we get together, we're actually exchanging our inspiration.
Oh.
If I may close off with this, and then I'll pass it on to you guys for the final word. If we're ever feeling like we are up in our heads and up in our minds with too much thinking, whether it's political Qi or whether it's our own, thoughts and worries, a good course of action would be to take a deep breath to feel the abdomen, expand the abdomen, and breathe from the pelvic floor. Taking a deep breath inhale, that's called returning the sun to the mother, bringing the energy from the upper energy center down to the lower energy center. And then when we exhale, allowing those two energies to integrate, and so as to balance one's own lower and upper, to bring the energy down from the upper, from the thinking, and bring it back home into that lower energy center. And then finally finding that truth of love and service at the heart and connection.
Jai Ma.
Jai Ma. Yeah, and I think we are totally present in that which we love about the world and that which we care about the world. And I think if we come back continuously to the place of what is it that we are truly trying to protect and share and love and have devotion about, and that always brings us back to our center, because we are here because we love being here. We are here because we have love, and because our love is absolutely integrated in our actions. So if we come back to that which we love and why we are presenting ourselves in that way and pushing ourselves in a way to keep it alive and grow it, I think that's really our healing modality.
And let's not forget that we are not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm speaking on behalf of these concepts, principles, and actions so as to remind myself on the course of action.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for calling, Ranjit. Tony, thank you so much.
Blessings.
It's always a delight to share with you two, even though it's in a very intellectualized form to, share via the radio or whatever. But again, the breath is a powerful thing. And it's you need some guidance there. It isn't just a thing that comes exactly. The power part of it needs some guidance, and it does say that in the scriptures as well. So anyway, let's take a deep breath and go do something.
Thanks so much, Ranjit.
Right.
We'll talk to you
So
soon.
good to hear your
brother.
voice.
Carry on.
So long. Blessings, brother.
All right, folks, this is has been Qi Talks, the third Thursday 9 a.m. show with Javi and Tony, TonyKalifeMusic.com, Javi at talkingqi@gmail.com. Let us know what you're thinking, what you'd like to hear and see. What do you think about political Qi, and then how do you restore balance and harmony? And you can find me at the Garberville Town Square Saturday. I'll be helping out with Help is on the Way. And actually, I'm giving a course in content creation, video production. And if you want to share your brand story, fundraise for your nonprofit, introduce a business, those are content creation is a good way for social media, YouTube, what have you. Hey, maybe even community radio. Thanks again, Tony, and we'll talk to you soon, everybody. Thanks for having us.